Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Writers Tribe Talk Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and today I have a fantastic guest on. She is a wealth of information and so necessary for us writers. In particular, I know she's great for all of us, but in particular, new authors or new aspiring authors. She is somebody that you are really going to want to get on board with. She's got great tips and references and tools and everything you could need to get your book in tip-top shape. So get ready for Stacy Juba. Okay, guys, as promised, I have Stacy Juba here. She is an author, a freelance editor, and a writing instructor. I had to make sure I had that right. I wanted to look at my notes here to make sure I got it because you wear many hats. So
Yes.
Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. All right, so I kind of sort of want to go in order what I think is in order. You started off writing, you started off as an author, correct? So
Right.
tell me a little bit about your own authorship journey.
I've been writing pretty much my whole life since I was excuse me, since I was in elementary school. And then I had my first book published when I was a teenager. I wrote a young adult hockey novel and entered it in a contest sponsored by Avon Books for teenagers. And then I found out my freshman year of college I had won. So that was sort of my first foray into being an author. Although that came easily, and I received like fan letters from kids and some positive reviews and like book lists and Publishers Weekly. There followed several years of rejection because I still needed to hone my skills and find my voice, find my genres, because I didn't have the benefit of working with a professional editor on all these other books, all these other drafts, unlike with Avon, where I had an editor working with me and helping me to make it publishable. Then I worked with an agent for a while, and then got a couple my mystery novels accepted by a mystery publisher, and that's when I launched my website and started really writing more and promoting myself as an author. And then over the years since then, I've published a couple more young adult books, my Storybook Valley, a chick lit series. I have 2 books in that, so that was a whole different genre for me. And then I got into freelance editing and online courses, and in between I've also been a journalist for many years.
Nice.
So,
yeah, just throw that in there. You
yeah.
know, one
That was
more
like
thing. Why not?
that was my day job for a lot of years.
I totally get it. Now talk to me a little bit about, so I've genre hopped as well, and writing for different genres, of course, is, they're all really so different requirements, different needs. How easy or difficult was that for you to make the switch from young adult to chick lit, for example? Did you struggle with that at all?
Yeah, I like the young adult hockey novel I've written, that just sort of, I wanted to write like a sports novel. I was a big hockey fan at that time in high school, and I couldn't find anything to read, that was fiction about hockey. So that one came really easily for me because I was just writing like what I wanted to read, and it was just fun for me. Mysteries came more naturally to me because I grew up reading Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys and Trixie Belden and all of that. And then I got into like Mary Higgins Clark and, all these different series. So that came easily to me for my first couple of adult novels. And then I started reading a lot of chick lit and romantic comedy. I really enjoyed like Sophie Kinsella's shopaholic books. And I never expected to go in that direction. I really liked having like a murder, and that was what the plot was. So not having like a crime in the book was a big change for me. And so I worked with an editor on that, trying to find the right, the right balance, and read a lot of chick lit books, and then got a handle on it. And I found that writing chick lits, once I got into it and, I let myself, explore that direction and my confidence increased, I found that came really naturally to me. That was something I never really dreamed of, because I had never read that genre when I was younger, but it's just my writing style just kind of evolved as I got older, my interests expanded. And so it's kind of shows my playful side and my sense of humor. And those are a lot of fun to write. So
Love that. Now, you gave some like accidental advice there that I think is so important and really useful for writers when they're struggling to figure out what to write. They know they want to write, so what do I write? And the answer is write what you would want to read. And I think that's like a great place to start. I love that. You couldn't find what you wanted to read, so you wrote what you would want to read. I think that's absolutely brilliant and great advice really to writers. Like if you're struggling figuring out what your content is going to be about, what do you want to read? What do you wish there was more of, and write that. Of course I'm simplifying. It's not necessarily that easy,
but I'm all about simplifying. So yeah,
right. Yeah, I know.
Definitely.
Me too. Yeah. What is it? What's that saying? Keep it simple, stupid. I say that to myself all the time when I complicate things. And then with chick lit, that's just fun reading. And and your other bit of advice there, or accidental advice that I don't know if you realize you gave, was to read the genres that you want to write in so that you understand how they work. I know I can't write a mystery novel because I didn't really read them, so I wouldn't understand the formula for it, but if I wanted to, that's where I'd start, reading tons of them for sure. Now, how did you morph from writing to doing editing work? And we'll start with there. How did you go from one to the other?
As I mentioned before, I was a journalist for a lot of years, working for a newspaper. And then when my kids were little, I freelanced. So I wrote like for parenting magazines and had a couple of long-term clients, like writing articles for a hospital and a nonprofit. And then I started to just feel like I needed to kind of be fulfilled more. And one of those clients decided that they weren't going to do a newsletter anymore. So I had like a hole in my schedule. And then I decided to get into freelance editing and just kind of see how that went. And I found that I really enjoyed doing that and kind of being invited to play in another author's playground, and help them brainstorm. And the more clients I work with, the more I saw that they were all making the same kinds of mistakes. Like their stories were different and were unique, but their mistakes were not. And it really spanned different levels. I mean, even some of the advanced authors were making some of the same kinds of mistakes that the less experienced authors were. I mean, the beginners had tons of, small ones and big ones. But every author just sort of had their strengths and weaknesses. And the more advanced they became, the less weaknesses they had, but they still had areas where they could improve. And it was just like a pattern I could see from author to author. It was always the same kinds of things. And then I expanded into online courses because I felt that was it was really like a stepping stone that a lot of authors needed to take before hiring an editor, because working with an editor is so expensive. I mean, it could cost like $1,400 for one round with a developmental editor. And a common misconception that a lot of newer authors have is that, well, I'm just going to pay for one round of editing and then I'll do the rewrites and then I'll publish it or I'll send it to an agent. And it's often a shock for them when they get this like 12-page letter back telling them, single space, telling them all of the problems the manuscript has, and then seeing all the markups. And, if they want to get some feedback on the next round of rewrites, they'll have to pay again. And some authors need more than just a couple rounds. Some authors ideally would need 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds, depending on their skill level when they started out. And then some will also need like copy editors because they have a weakness, like with grammar and punctuation and proofreading. So it can be an expensive process. And that's not just if you're self-publishing. I mean, you have to make sure, if you want to go the traditional route, you also have to make sure that your manuscript is strong enough to compete, with all of the others in the slush pile. And so I found that having a course was a really great stepping stone, so that it was a more affordable option. It doesn't replace hiring an editor, but it replaces hiring an editor for those early drafts, so that it kind of teaches authors how to think like an editor, so that they can get their manuscript as strong as possible before hiring one, and then be able to work with an editor for a higher level edit on their best work. So that's what I'm doing now. Is I still have one-on-one clients, but I also have my courses, and I have some more courses in the works. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
And I'll tell you what, there's a few things I want to touch on there. One is, and I'm sure you've seen it, and it's a cringy moment when, and I don't know, I shouldn't assume that you hear this, but do you hear from some novice authors who will say things like, oh, I reread it myself, so there's no mistakes, I'm good. And because I've heard that quite a few times from new authors, and they say, well, I read it like 3 times, and I, there's no mistakes, and I caught them all. And I'm like, oh God, no, you didn't. Nope. No, you didn't. It's convincing them of that, and then they learn it the hard way when they do send it to an editor and they get that shell shock. So yeah, you're probably saving a lot of authors some embarrassment, some money. Not, you shouldn't be embarrassed, but it's life, and it happens. And if you're new, it's all a learning process, certainly.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I find it. Before we went live here, I mentioned that, I've been following you for a while, and I'm not sure exactly. I know it was through social media that I found you. And I have to tell you, and I have to tell our audience, that you give such a wealth of information and tips and encouragement for your members, for the people that join your group. And there are so many nuggets of value that you give. I'm blown away every time, and I'm like, oh my God, good, a new thing to learn.
Thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope everyone that watches this or listens to it, whichever the case is, takes the time to get over very quickly before I keep bombarding you with questions. Could you tell everybody the name of your Facebook group?
Yeah, it's called Shortcuts for Writers. So like I have 2 websites. I have my stacyjuba.com website, and then I have my Shortcuts for Writers website for authors that has like my editing on all my classes and everything. So the group is the Shortcuts for Writers Editing Made Simple Facebook group.
Yes, it is amazing, amazing, amazing. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you do go over to Stacy's website and check out her course, and the book editing blueprint was that the start? Was that the first thing that you did in this lane? The book editing blueprint? Did that start kind of the snowball?
Yeah, like before I did that, I did like some smaller workshops with some like Romance Writers of America, their online chapters. I led several workshops there, and then Savvy Authors, another site for writers, I led some workshops. I actually started out with time management classes because that was something I think all writers struggle with, because a lot of times they have all the time they have other responsibilities, and often they have day jobs, and writing is a passion, and it's more than a hobby. So they want to devote a lot of time to it, but they have to fit it into this busy life. And that was something, with 2 young kids and trying to do freelancing and everything, that was something I struggle with also. So I studied a lot on time management and trying to find solutions that work for me. And then I started out doing some workshops in groups, teaching them about time management, and it seemed like really helpful to them. I also taught some workshops about blogging and websites and promotion. And then I just kind of found that my strength was the editing and the time management. That's where I felt the most comfortable. Like that's where my expertise was. But that was all a great experience because I found that I enjoyed teaching. And I think creating these courses, and it draws upon my journalism background. I've written a lot of articles over the years on kind of complex topics and trying to make them engaging and break it down into easy reading so that it's easy to understand. So I try to apply that to my courses. So
I think that's such an important thing for authors, struggling authors, I should say, that are, I think a lot of people go into this thinking, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to put it on Amazon, I'm going to sell lots of copies, and I'm going to make lots of money, and this will be my job. This will be what I do. And that does work for some people. That does happen. Certainly, I don't want to be a discourager by any means. But for the majority, that's not the case. That's not going to be your bread and butter. It's not going to be your moneymaker. But if you love the craft like you do and like I do, you start thinking of ways that you can use your knowledge and your skills and kind of branch out a little bit. So I love that you did that, and especially because you took your skill set and said, well, I'm going to help other authors succeed, or help them get that opportunity to succeed and do things the right way. And when you said time management, I was like, oh yeah, I better get back in those courses and find that. I am people are sick of hearing me say it, I'm sure, but I'm a classic ADHD, and I'm like a ping pong. So there's usually 20 things going on at once, and probably 7 of them get finished.
Yeah. Prioritize. We're gonna prioritize.
Yes. Like you got to get them in order there. You said, or no, actually, I found it on your website. I was reading your bio a little bit, and something that resonated very much with me, in line with what we're talking about, is that you are a self-proclaimed introvert, and that is, that is the nature of so many of us. There's certainly extroverted authors out there. So I love that you took that and you're like, well, I'm going to do courses, I'm going to do this training, I'm going to do all these things, but I'm going to guess that you decompress after.
Yeah, I mean, just going live on video that was a big thing. Even when I first started doing like podcast interviews, I used to be like shaking.
Yes.
But I like now, when I first started, because I've been doing this a long time, it was just you did the interviews over the phone. Now I like it much better because usually you can see the other person and it's more like a conversation. But I still, the videos still sometimes, like I'm really like a perfectionist, so like I'll record the course videos over and over just till I get it right. But when I doing like a live videos, I'm trying to be more comfortable. Yes. They kind of being less scripted and being more myself. Right. I think that's what people like also. It's just it doesn't come as naturally to me as writing does. Because writing is always been my main best way of communicating. So
I totally get it. Yeah, it's like the whole thing of getting out of your own head and stop thinking about, how you appear, how people are perceiving you. And and it does, you're so right. It turns out that people just really want you to be authentic, be real. If you're uncomfortable, if you're nervous, just own it. I mean, obviously in a course setting, it's different. I with my podcast here, I throw myself under the bus regularly. Now I want to go back to we were talking about editing mistakes and things like that. I don't know if it's easy or hard to pinpoint, but is there something that is like the most common thing that you see as far as mistakes in manuscripts?
I would say on the smaller scale level, it's overused words. I see this in all levels of authors. And I think with beginner authors are not as aware of it. And with the more advanced authors, they're just, I don't want to say like rushing through the book, but they like on a deadline and they want to get it done. And they just want to get it off their desk and sent off to their editor. They're already thinking about the next one. So they don't go through it as carefully. So they miss these things. So overused words like look is probably the number one most overused word I see. I mean, I've seen it like 500 times, like in a 300-page book. Sit, stand, smile, just words like that. Eyes. Eyes is another big one, especially with romance writers.
Oh, right. Yes.
Eyes. It's not that you can't use these words. You definitely can, but you don't want to use them so that they're like on every page, because if you have a mix of these words on every page and those are your main verbs or your main description, it's just your writing isn't as engaging or as unique as it could be. It's definitely, if you're always using these like look, gaze, walk, that's another common one, is just people walking or nodding or shaking their head. That's actually why I created I have another course called Energize Your Writing Toolkit, Cheat Sheets for Character Emotions. And that helps a bit with with some of the nonverbal communication and the body language, because that was always one of my weaknesses. And I actually made myself like these cheat sheets. Like I just had them handwritten, and it was a mess, but I had them in a binder for different emotions, or like for smile, for just different ways to show like a smile or happiness or anger, so somebody wasn't always like stalking off or that kind of thing. So
yes,
that's
absolutely.
where it stemmed from. It was stemmed from my cheat sheets that I have for myself, and then I saw all these others had the same issue where they just needed to pump up those smaller details so that, because that's a lot of what the scene is. It's just these details that kind of support the dialogue or that just convey the emotions. And it's just so easy just to reach for he smiled, or she walked away, or he nodded.
True.
And again, you can use them. You'll see those in best-selling books, but that's fine. But it's the overusing them.
Right. Yeah. Sparingly and interspersed with other. Yeah. I'm guilty of all of them. My, of course, especially my earliest books, everything is he nodded, she nodded, he looked, she walked,
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay. And you don't realize I was guilty of a weird one too, or weird to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not weird to you, but just. I used the word just like so excessively. I'm like, of all, like, it's, to me, it was such a weird word to overuse. But once I, really started pinpointing, looking for it, then I was like, oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's so unnecessary. It's just unneeded.
Right. That's a big one. And then I notice sometimes, especially with beginner writers, is everybody's always smiling and laughing. And that's a problem as the book goes on into the middle and toward the climax. If everybody's smiling and laughing all the time, then there's not enough tension or conflict, and it's just not building in momentum, because the story needs to be about the problems and obstacles. And so I write this in my editorial letters to clients a lot of times. We're at like page 200, we're getting into the climax. Everybody shouldn't be smiling and laughing all the time at this point. Right. It could be like a little
they're starting to look a little maniacal.
Yeah. Like, they should have more, with all this going on, they shouldn't be so happy. So
yeah, and these are such important things to learn as a writer, and novice writers. I think they're so focused on probably just telling. I shouldn't say probably. I know this. Just telling the story, getting the story out, and then once the story is purged and out, they think, oh, good. Okay, I'm done. That's it. I'll just read through it, make sure it's good, and send it off, and then they get the surprises that you got a lot more work to do. And what you offer really saves them so much of the expense, really. I mean, this is what you're giving so many lessons and tips and tools, which ultimately save lots of money, because if you are self-publishing, you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things, you're finding the book cover designers, you're doing the promoting, and all of this stuff costs money.
Right.
And so this is a great, and it's a great learning tool, what you offer, and it's a great money saver too, because when you do send it off to an editor, you're sending them a pretty clean, as clean as possible manuscript, which means less work for them, right? I mean, that's kind of like the goal.
You're right, definitely. Because like I call my business Shortcuts for Writers, not because it's like cutting corners, but because you can either do it all yourself, just learning or reading lots of books and everything, and that's good to supplement, but it's the way I learned it was very much the scenic route, just trial and error. And, I was thrown right into the fire with that first book with the editor. I mean, I got this 20-page editorial letter back, when I was living in a dorm in college when I was 18 years old. I had to write this before like computers. I had written my draft on an electric typewriter, and I had so much rewriting to do. It was just a shock. It was just an absolute shock. And I managed to do it, but not with before I had a panic attack. And then after that, it would have been great. This was really before freelance editors or the internet. I think they had book doctors back then, but I mean, they were a lot of money and you didn't know how to find them. So for every manuscript I wrote, I didn't have the benefit of having this editor to help me with it. I had critique groups and everything, but there's only so much you can do on your own. I just got feedback from agents and editors. I'd send it and just tons of rejection, tons of going back to the drawing board, or like, oh, our pub committee really liked it, but we think you should do this, and going back and resubmitting it. So it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's just going to be worth it in the end. And I don't think a lot of authors who are starting out really know how tough the road can be. But I think it's a lot easier now, because nowadays with all the self-publishing, and there's all different options, and then there's all these professionals and courses that can help you to shorten the journey, and just so that you don't have to learn it through as much trial and error like the way we did years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. So much trial and error.
Yeah, it was a tough journey.
Yeah, so. and too, I think there's a lot of fear of submitting to an editor, and for the most part, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule, but really the reality is an editor's job is to help you make your manuscript as good as it can be. So they're not working against you. And I think maybe people, I don't know, maybe they get defensive or, afraid of their work getting changed. And that was before I worked with an editor for the first time. Those were all my fears. They're going to change my work. They're going to make me change all these things. And they're going to be really critical. And I have to say, the editor I've worked with was so gracious and so helpful, and taught me so many things with kindness, and didn't make me feel like an idiot when I think I'm still embarrassed by it. It was accidental. I know the difference between the two words, but it was like ravishing and ravaged or something. I can't remember what it was. It was something I don't know, something like that. And, I used the wrong one, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I knew that. Which of course.
Yeah, I think like a lot of writers, they expect so much of themselves. I mean, when you think about it, you don't learn how to write a book in school. I mean, most writers, it's like they don't go to college to learn how to write a novel and get their like MFA. I mean, even if you're an English major or something, that you might be really good at the copy editing stuff and and kind of themes, and because you've read a lot, but that doesn't mean you know how to write a book. But I think people forget that, and they expect so much of themselves. They expect it to be publishable in this first draft, and then we'll send it to an editor, and the editor will just, polish it up a bit, and then it's ready. And they're always so surprised when they get the letter back and they realize they have so much more work to do. But it's not your fault because nobody taught you this, right?
Oh my God, you made such a great point. That is such a great point. We didn't learn that in school. Nobody said, okay, this is how you write a book. Most people are just winging it, and you are learning kind of as you go for the most part. And God, that's so true. I never actually even really thought of that, but that's really accurate. So writers, stop being so hard on yourselves. Accept the fact that you need help, that you need guidance, and you need people who have done this before. You need people like Stacy Juba who walk you through these things and hold your hand a little bit, and help you make your manuscript everything that it can and should be, basically, right?
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're getting ready to close out here. What advice do you have, like a nugget of advice? I hate to put you on the spot. I said I wouldn't put anybody on the spot, and I'm kind of doing it. What nugget of advice would you give to new authors?
um, just read a lot. Definitely read a lot in the genre you want to write in. I've heard some authors say that they don't want to read in the genre they're writing in because they're afraid they're going to be influenced or take things. But you really have to know what you really have to be comfortable with the genre. Ways down and write it. Like I've seen some authors like write a science fiction book, but they've only read a couple of science fiction books. So that's, it's not wasting your time. It's you're probably drawn to writing because you love to read anyway, and this is your homework, so you get to read something you enjoy. Join writers communities also, because writing can be very well, it is very solitary, and some authors, that's what they're drawn to it, they like that, but it's also nice to, if you don't have any other writers in your life that you're friends with, or you're not in a critique group locally or something, then it's hard for other people to really get it. Like,
that's so
really
true. Yeah, you feel like you're on an
understand.
island most of the time. And when
Right.
we do, and for anybody who does not have an author community, you're going to be so pleasantly surprised, because once you start speaking with other authors, it's like finding your tribe. It's finding, people who speak the same language as you, that feel the same excitement and passion about the written word. These are people who literally get giddy over words. So yes, yeah. Oh, that is outstanding
Yeah.
advice. I agree wholeheartedly with you. Now tell everyone where they can find your books, where they can find your courses, how they can do all of the things, Stacy Juba.
Well, if they're interested in my books, they can go to stacyjuba.com, and I have, I guess we mentioned, I have my chicklet series, the Storybook Valley chicklet series, some mysteries, young adult books, young adult paranormal, and two young adult hockey novels, and a couple of children's picture books. So most of them are in different formats, like paperback, ebook, Audible. And then if you're interested in writing, you can go to shortcutsforwriters.com. In my menu bar, there's a freebies section, so you can go there and get the link to the Facebook group. And then I also have a free 5-day line editing class you can sign up for, Line Editing Made Simple, where every day you'll get email lessons sent to your inbox, and then you'll also have access to an online classroom so that you can refer to the lessons later. And a lot of people have told me that's really helpful. And we talk about things like overusing look, and trying to evaluate which one of these issues might be plaguing your manuscript. Yeah, and then the shortcutswriters.com has all the information on my editing services and my classes. And then, I'm always happy to have writers join the Facebook group, or have them message me or email me if they have any questions.
Nice. I love it. And you've built a wonderful community in there. Everyone is so helpful. And I see regularly somebody will ask a question and people jump right in with advice and answers, and good answers and good advice. And your courses are phenomenal. They are so information packed and great to watch and great to learn from. Highly, highly recommend them. And what I want to ask you too, with all of this going on, do you have time to write? Are you doing any book writing right now, or nothing in the works at the moment?
Yeah, I've been taking a break. The last one was my last one. Yeah, my last one was Offsides, which was the sequel to my original book that I published when I was a teenager, which was kind of fun.
That's cool.
So they were written like 25 years apart, but take place 1 year later. So that was,
I love that.
That was fun. But yeah, I have some ideas. I'd like to do some more Storybook Valley books, like a Christmas novella, but I also have some courses I want to get out, and I'm thinking about doing some group coaching also. So I'm trying to kind of prioritize and get one project done at a time, and then I'll go back to doing some writing. But
nice.
I kind of fit the creating the courses and the program. It's almost like writing a book, so it kind of, yeah, it's except writing like a nonfiction one, or just more interactive, like with videos and everything, but it sort of draws upon that same creativity. So I find that fulfilling also. But
very cool.
definitely when I go back and do some more Storybook Valley books, and maybe another hockey novel. We'll see.
Stacy, I can't thank you enough for giving me some of your time and sharing your knowledge base with us. Shortcuts for Writers course. Go to Stacy's website. Is it stacyjuba.com? Is that right or no?
Yeah,
What's
that's
the
right.
actual? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes.
stacyjuba.com.
Excellent. Yes. Get over there. Go check out everything that Stacy has on there. You will be very glad that you did. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and I hope to have you back on again.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Wonderful. Thanks. All right, guys, this has been the Writers Tribe Talk Show. I will see you in the next episode. Take care.